Hi there, this is Stacey, and I'm dropping into the channel today to do something a little bit different. I'd been racking my brain to try and demonstrate the way that I work with people, which of course is a bit tricky because I would not in any way, shape, or form be comfortable with recording a session. So, what I would try to do is just treat this as a bit of a one-way session, right? And just imagine some of the responses that people may have. And what went through my mind was what I want you to know. And and what I also want you to know is that yes, I need a haircut. But um this idea of what I want you to know is, first of all, if you are in a toxic narcissistic relationship, if you've come out of a toxic narcissistic relationship, if this has been your family of origin, this isn't happening without good reason. So that's the first thing I want you to know. The second thing I want you to know is that you are not alone. I know this just from checking in and seeing who's liking and subscribing, and from all the clients I work with and the people who come to my workshops. Not to mention the fact that so many of you are so protected. One of the things that I have come to know intuitively, to witness with clients in front of me, people just like you, is so many people who experienced all different kinds of abuse and mistreatment are much more protected than what might seem obvious to you. Also, for those who felt neglected or alone, those are the energetic or psychic spaces where guides and helpers can come in, right? As a child, I had an imaginary friend. There is no doubt in my mind that's what that was at the time. If I have been using numbers, I'm going to lose track of where I'm at. But the next thing I want you to know is we all learn patterns rooted in attachment, rooted in the ways that we've been conditioned, and those patterns can change. Of course, they can. We have everything we need to learn to relate to ourselves and other people differently. How do we do that? We learn that by mapping out those patterns. I call that the attachment blueprint in my book. We do that by being self-aware, even though we've been surrounded by people who perhaps are not. We do that by being aware of when we're falling into ways that we've been conditioned to think about ourselves and shifting it to a way that's much more kindness. We do this with self-inquiry, right? So if you follow me on social media, you'll know that you'll come across the term inquire within. That's where that comes from. Self-inquiry, in my opinion, is the most important part, or one of the most important parts of personal development, transformation, and growth. And that's what we're really talking about here, is how you take the hand that's been dealt you and do something with it, right? What I want you to know is that where some types of therapy may be popular, I don't think they work for people who've been in narcissistic relationships or who've experienced narcissistic abuse. Number one of those being cognitive behavior therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy. The second one being any of the interpersonal types of therapies, somatic therapy, right? Anything that does not directly connect to changing some of those patterns probably isn't going to be so helpful. And I've watched people struggle because I've done my best to use those modalities, but they don't always fit. And I'm not dissing them. I love cognitive behavioral therapy. I use that in my own life all the time. So I'm not dismissing it. But there are limitations. And so to me, a more holistic, a more integrated approach to this work is what is needed here. And so that means a more integrated, holistic approach to you and your life, to building new blocks, right, onto those early ones that you had, and learning how to bring the right kind of people into your life, right? So, just as a recap, what I want you to know is with knowing your attachment blueprint, understanding your early patterns of conditioning, with learning self inquiry and self compassion, with building boundaries, right, in your life, with working through debilitating blocks of guilt, with knowing you are divinely deserving of good, loving people and reciprocal relationships, that you can step into the life you are meant to. And the thing that is the most important thing for you to know from me and where I sit, I think in my book I call this something like, thoughts from my chair, thoughts from my side of the therapy room. But the other thing is, you have these beautiful gifts. You have this way about you that you perhaps have had to hide and you perhaps have had to take underground, or that perhaps, as someone once said to me, you hide that light under a bushel. And, it is my honored and divine purpose to help shift that. Because what I want you to know is that if you're an empath, if you're gifted, if you're a highly sensitive person, or even if you're just curious about those things, I help you step into that personal power and those gifts because, hey, don't we all know that the world needs you right now? That is my call. And that is what I so dearly want you to know. And so if this resonates with you, of course, like, subscribe, send it out to someone who may also need to hear it. And in the comments, if you want to chat with me about this, I've finally gotten off my high horse and put in a booking link. So I want to know what's brought you here. I'm curious. Let's have a 15-20 minute chat and I can hear all about it. Thank you for tuning in and have a wonderful rest of your day.